What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Reignmakers Fantasy Golf Show, presented by our friends at DraftKings. Shout out to DraftKings. Reignmakers has been an incredible PGA Tour season, and last week they released a new format of Reignmakers games for the showdown slates, Friday and Sunday showdowns. Friday's slate was $30,000, I believe. Sunday's slate was $100,000 prize pool. Some of the best prize pools that we've seen in Reignmakers from these packs, and the showdown slate to me is really interesting. I want to hear what you guys think. Unfortunately, given that I live in a state that does not allow Reignmakers specifically, I need to make a drive. It's about an hour drive to get to the West Virginia border to enter lineups, which ultimately means that I would need to make 3 drives in a given week to play all of the Reignmakers slates that exists. And that's just not feasible. So I am still playing Reignmakers. I'm playing the cards that I own in the main contest, the contest that lasts for all 4 rounds. I am opting to not play the showdowns just because of the driving. And I think it's a little bit sad for me just because showdown seems like a really fun format. It also is a format where DraftKings isn't taking a lot of rake out of the game. I believe it was like 6% of the pool or something, even maybe a little less than that. And then and that's just out of the prize pool. When you add in the fact that there's cards and franchise score and other things associated with these packs and these cards, it might be even less than that. So, playing in a rake-free contest on DraftKings is usually the best way to go about enjoying DraftKings, trying to win as much as you possibly can, and having the best chance at doing so. So a little bit sad from my point of view to miss out on some of the showdown slates. I am going to be traveling over the course of the next month or so, and I've been looking at when I might be traveling, where to, and how I might be able to play a little showdown from a Reignmaker standpoint. So I think it's a really interesting concept. It's something that they're obviously piloting and putting out there for the fall swing, which is an awesome way to just embrace the user base and provide more action for us golf degenerates out there looking to get more and more action and fun times down on the fall golf swing. I didn't do a show last week for the Sanderson Farms, had a bunch going on. I did play some lineups. I think I only cashed one of my 9 lineups, and it was a core lineup, cashed for $5. So not the best performance from me, but it was very much a fall golf classic. Luke List wins in a pretty dramatic fashion, a 5-man playoff. And you would assume 5 golfers playing a playoff hole, you would assume that you need to make birdie in order to move on. Luke does, in fact, make birdie from 43 feet. Mr. Luke List has learned how to putt, has put a little Happy Gilmore into his game. And if Luke List can putt, look out. His ceiling is pretty insane, in my opinion. If he can putt, putter has always been the biggest issue. He's one of TJ's sort of stable horses, if you will. And we know TJ loves a good ball striker. We know he loves somebody that can hit the driver. And Luke List can do all of the above. And now he's adding putting. So not shocking to see him get a victory. We're going to talk a little bit about the fall golf swing in general. I also want to cover a little bit of my thoughts on the Ryder Cup. I know we're a couple of weeks late there, but I thought those were really fun contests. Unfortunately, the United States just got straight up beat by Team Europe. Just a better team. Just ultimately played better golf, was set up better. Their big horses did exactly what their big horses needed to do to get the victory. U.S. got pretty much manhandled. They made it interesting. And I listened to a lot of the podcasts coming out of that with the players. I know Max Homa was on one, heard Jordan Spieth talk, heard Justin Thomas talk a little bit. I thought Max was the sole bright spot for the U.S. Clearly played the best on the U.S. side, won 3.5 points. And his takes were pretty good. His takes were that the team was together and Hatgate and all that stuff. But, when it came down to just the pure golf, The U.S. had life for about 12 minutes on Sunday. Otherwise, it was Team Europe all the way, pure domination. Since the Ryder Cup, I've changed my own personal rankings as a mega golf fan. Augusta is on my list for the Masters to get to it on a Sunday. Haven't gone to Augusta at all yet in my life. We'll certainly be doing that. I think Sunday at Augusta would be my number one, but I've now replaced that. I think a European Ryder Cup experience and going to a Ryder Cup on enemy territory is probably number one on my list for bucket list golf trips and golf events that you need to attend. So Ireland in 2027 is it 2027? Yeah, 2027 is next. So we'll see what we can pull for the next 4 years. I already told my wife, like, I want to make this push. I need to save some cash to do it because obviously it's going to be sort of an all out kind of trip. But I think that would just be a phenomenal trip for any mega golf fan. Just incredible to be on enemy territory. It's probably, one of the hardest things to do in golf is win as the enemy team away from home soil. So I think it would be a really fun event. But Ryder Cup was awesome. Coming back to the States and coming to New York, Bethpage Black specifically, gonna be insane. Gonna be incredibly friendly for New York fans to get there and to give the Europeans a whole lot of heckling. It sounded like the U.S. team had to deal with a good bit of heckling. Obviously, Hatgate and Patrick Cantlay and all of that was a bit of a wild ride there for 24 hours. I expect the New York fans and I expect Bethpage to be rocking and rolling like no other event in golf. So should be pretty fun. Fall golf. I want to cover a couple of things. We're going to get into this week, TPC Summerlin in Vegas, a little bit of a smaller field than typical. And that sort of is why I want to get into a little bit of the fall golf swings and takes and general just golf comments that have in golf craziness that has happened over the course of the last week or so. Let's start with the corn. I guess let's start with like the high level. What are we doing here? Fall golf. The top 50 players can't play. How does this matter? Why does it matter? Why are there so many guys that care about playing and so on and so forth? So let's just start at the top. Okay. There's 125 PGA Tour golfers that will play on the PGA Tour that will receive PGA Tour cards for the 2024 season. The top 125 golfers and the FedEx Cup points list at the end of fall golf, which is effectively the end of the year, will receive a 2024 a 2024 PGA Tour card. Why is the card important? You need the card to be able to play PGA Tour events. Even if you have your card, you don't just get to, go out there, make your schedule and play in any events you want. Now there's going to be these designated events or elevated events and a mix of regular events alongside the elevated events. You'll need to have different statuses. And I'm not even honestly sure exactly how the statuses work. Like if you're ranked 100, what that means. There's priority lists, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, the goal of all these golfers playing right now, which are golfer number 51 on the list, all the way down to any golfer that could get into these tournaments. The goal is to finish 125th or better on this FedEx Cup points list, because then you secure your 2024 PGA Tour card. In addition to that, the golfers that are ranked the dubbed next 10, which is rank 51 through 60, those golfers automatically receive invitation to two tournaments. The the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, which is a very fun, nuanced kind of tournament. You're playing a Pro-Am tournament at Pebble Beach. All eyes are usually on that event. It's one of the bigger events where you get sort of the craziness. You get Jack Nicholson, and all of his stuff. And you get, Bill Murray, you get all the, Steph Curry, you get all the mega athletes and stars out, which ultimately brings eyeballs to the game. So getting to that field is solid for someone who's, on the on the PGA Tour list, but not in the top 50. So 51 through 60 will get automatically into that event and the Genesis. And the Genesis was an elevated event last year, was one of the best fields in golf. It's probably the West Coast golf course to get on. It's probably between the Genesis and the Farmers Insurance Open, Torrey Pines and Riviera. It's awesome. The Genesis is probably one of my favorite early golf tournaments and should be really fun. Good call. Yeah, Pebble Beach elevated event. No Steph Curry. I always forget when Steph Curry plays, but he will be playing basketball when this event goes off. So Steph doesn't play, but you get like Tony Romo. Who else is big name out there? You get big name CEOs of some of the best companies and biggest companies in the world. Again, so on and so forth. It's still an awesome event to get into if you're, a PGA Tour player. The money is there. They're playing Pebble. It's just a really fun time. Good way to kick off the West Coast swing. So you get into those two events, and Riviera, I believe, will be an elevated event. So getting into an elevated event is huge for these guys. You're playing for way more money. So that's why this FedEx Cup playoff list matters. That's why FedEx Cup points list, not playoff list. That's why the points list matters. That's what you hear about. If you're a new golf fan out there, you're watching a given tournament, you're kind of like, oh, well, these guys are just playing for money on a given, Thursday through Sunday. It's obvious that they're playing for a lot of money. I don't care if they're an elevated event or a non-elevated event. They're playing for millions of dollars, $8 million pools, $9 million pools, $20 million pools if you're talking about elevated events. So you kind of like, it's very easy. Even me as a golf fan, when I first got into golf, I didn't understand all of the moving pieces of the FedEx Cup list and why that mattered. And I think in this new format, it's starting to be more clear as to what matters in a given season and where you are on that list and why that list matters. And the reason for there being more clarity is the elevated events. The elevated events have the most money. Therefore, you'll want to be trying to play as many of those elevated events as you can alongside the major championships. So in general, to me, the FedEx Cup point list is starting to bring some clarity to the journey of the PGA Tour season, the calendar long season of golf, why that matters. And, in general, I think it's helping me at least, and hopefully it's starting to be a little bit more clear for a common golf fan as to why all of this matters. Only 145 or 160 golfers get to play on the PGA Tour. 160 people is incredibly small, and there's so much money at stake, and there's so many good golfers. I can't say this enough, that there's so many good golfers in the world, that all of this stuff matters a ton. And we see this played out in a couple of examples over the course of the last week, and it's not even on the PGA Tour. The feeder tour, or the Corn Ferry Tour, if you're watching golf and you hear about the Corn Ferry Tour, the Corn Ferry Tour is sort of the feeder tour to the PGA Tour. And ultimately, those guys play a very similar style schedule. It's a lot less attention, a lot less money, a lot more travel. But in general, the top 30 on the Corn Ferry Tour, they have a points list similar to the FedEx Cup points list. The Corn Ferry Tour points list, the top 30 get their PGA Tour card as well. So those top 30 move into the PGA Tour, and all of a sudden now they're playing for way more money. Some of these guys are scraping together thousands of dollars to just get by. They have backers, investors, and so on and so forth. And it's just a very, very difficult thing, which makes this story that I'm about to tell you so much more intriguing and so much more meaningful. You guys, if you're following anybody on golf media, following any golf media accounts on social, you saw a story about Rafael Campos, who had like a 7-foot putt, 8-foot putt, needed to make it in order to finish number 30 on the Corn Ferry Tour. He unfortunately missed the putt, broke down in tears, sort of talked about what that meant to him. And then we come to find out a couple of hours afterwards that the gentleman who was going to finish 30th, I want to make sure I get the name right here. And he finished 30th, finished the golf tournament. Apparently on the par 5 15th, he had a a lie. He played lift clean in place, put his ball back where it was. It moved. Rules official came over and said, put it back in the same place, see if it moves. If it does move, then you'll be able to take relief. He did not put it back in the same place. He moved the ball a little bit to the right. And ultimately, that wasn't a penalty that happened in real time. It was a penalty that happened after the fact in the scoring table. He shot a 74, had to take a 2-shot penalty after this event, after this rules infraction, shoots a 76 and bumps Campos back into the top 30. So, I mean, just the emotional toll of the up and down of needing to make this putt, not making it, to now making it on a rules infraction is quite insane. And it matters so much in terms of what these guys have to go through for the next year to get your PGA Tour card. So I thought that was a fascinating story. One that shows you a little bit about, one, how good the top professionals in golf are, and number two, how hard it is to make the PGA Tour, to play in these events on a given day. See a lot of casual fans out there talking. Lexi Thompson, a massive female golfer on the LPGA Tour, incredibly successful. Going to tee it up this week at TPC Summerlin for the Shriners Open. And a lot of people saying, well, you're giving that spot away. Or people say, oh, Steph Curry could compete on the PGA Tour. I mean, I think in some ways we need to grow the game. So I'm rooting for Lexi. I did place a free $10 bet over there at the DraftKings Sportsbook for Lexi to make the cut. I believe her odds were like plus 330 to make the cut. I think it'll be very difficult to do so. But in general, when you take a spot from someone else who is one of these golfers that are trying to be the best in the world, I understand the backlash. I understand why someone wouldn't want Steph Curry to take a spot in some of these events, or Lexi Thompson to take a spot in some of these events. But I also think that it's one event. They're trying to grow the game. I understand this back and forth in this pool. I thought Dylan Wu and social media in general has been really interesting to see how golfers interact on social media. This past season, we saw Michael Kim give like a really inside scoop and inside look at his thoughts and takes from Monday practice rounds, Tuesday, Wednesday pro-ams, like him being on the course saying, what he thinks the ending scores will be. And I thought just seeing that social media interaction was such a positive that now we're sort of seeing, now I'm paying attention more and seeing more from other golfers. And shout out to Monday Q, everything that Monday Q Info at Monday Q Info does. He covers all the Monday qualifiers. So what players are trying to Monday qualify into a PGA Tour event, the results of that, how hard it is to do. But then he also covers other like incredible stories in golf. And he was retweeting Dylan Wu, who, if you guys watch this show, have paid attention to the show at all, I love Dylan Wu as a golfer. I think he's one of the best players in the world for sure. I think his upside might be a little bit capped just because he hasn't proven the ability to make birdies and bunches yet. But man, it seems like Dylan Wu is always playing flawless golf, doesn't make a ton of bogeys. It's a question of like, can he make enough birdies? But I saw Dylan Wu tweet this out that he's ranked like 60th. I'm losing my track here. Where are we at? Let me see exactly. Where's my window at? Dylan Wu is ranked outside the top 50, but inside the top 125. He is currently ranked 83rd. He's 83rd. He's the 83rd best golfer, essentially, by FedEx Cup ranking points. Inside the top 100, Dylan Wu was not able to play in this event. Now, as someone who is outside the top 50, trying to make it into like as high as he can on this points list for the 2024 season, to play in as many events as he can, as someone who's a young grinder out there on the PGA Tour, the question that I have is just like, why is Dylan Wu, if the fall golf sprint is to play nobody inside the top 50, and from 51 through like whoever on the list, and the goal is to be inside the top 125. You now have a guy like Dylan Wu who initially couldn't play in this golf tournament. I mean, that to me is just sort of, it highlights the craziness of professional golf. It highlights how it's so difficult, not just to break in and not just to get on the PGA Tour, but to keep your card, to keep moving up the list, to have priority exemption into these events. I mean, this guy's 80 on the list, and he can't play in a tournament where the top 50 are not allowed to play. I mean, it just kind of doesn't make much sense. And so Dylan Wu highlighted this on Twitter. He said, what does he say here? He says, and he was responding to Monday Q Info. It's at a case of the golf one on X, but he was responding saying that the fall golf series is definitely flawed. He said how there's a lot of things wrong or unfair with fall courses and the changes they've made. How can I try to make sure that I'm inside the 125, but I'm not allowed to play in an event? Him and Aaron Baddeley, he gives as an example. They're both in the Zozo, a 78-player field, which we have the Zozo is next week. So it's the next event for DraftKings Reignmakers. But he's not able to play this tournament in Las Vegas. So I just think it highlights there are challenges for these guys. It highlights that like predicting fields is really difficult. And there's just a lot of fluidity and a lot of motion that happens for fall golf. And I say all of this to say that Dylan Wu is in the field this week, and it's sort of insane how he got into the field. Dylan Wu got into the field because I'm going to make sure that I get the person correct who dropped out. So let's head over to the PGA Tour communications website. I believe it's Endicott, but I do want to make sure I get this right. So let me get it. Because this is also an incredible story. Okay, so it's Brandon Matthews. Brandon Matthews withdraws from the event. As you guys all know, we always have withdrawals, especially in fall golf. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of people in different spots. So Brandon Matthews withdraws. That allows Dylan Wu to get in. But how Dylan Wu gets in is even more crazy. He gets in because of a Monday qualifier. Andrew Novak was actually ahead of Dylan Wu on this, like, people who get in the tournament when someone withdraws list. There's a priority pecking order. Andrew Novak was ahead of Dylan Wu. Andrew Novak had this inclination he wasn't going to get in. He then tries to Monday qualify in, and he actually qualifies. He qualifies on Monday, shoots a 63, qualifies on Monday, and then that moves Dylan Wu up, and then Dylan Wu gets in the tournament because of a withdrawal. I mean, it just goes to show you that there's so many moving pieces here. It's incredibly difficult to follow. And the point I'm making by saying all of these things is just that the nuances of pro golf and what you're able to predict in terms of who's playing and when they're going to play is quite difficult. But I'm sitting back enjoying this fall golf swing, seeing these guys battle it out, because I think, in my opinion, as entertaining as the top of the board is, as entertaining as it is to watch John Rahm and Scotty Scheffler and Max Homa, Patrick Cantlay, those guys are at the top of the list. They're taken care of. They're going to get in any event that they want to get into. The bottom of the list is where some of the most interesting stories in golf come. And I'm just fascinated by all of it. And I wanted to bring that to light here in the first beginning of the show today, just because I find that stuff interesting. We'll be keeping track of all of these golfers as we go through the fall, because the fall golf is the time, if you like these kind of stories, it's the time to key in. It's the time to start thinking about, like, how do we play these guys? What cards do we want to have, et cetera, et cetera. And it's probably the time to take the biggest chances. It's why Showdown Golf for Reignmakers, I think, is very fun. You fire in a pack lineup and you see where the chips fall. I think there's a lot of luck involved in fantasy golf in general. There is a ton of skill and predictive analytics that we can get into, that we have gotten into over the course of the year. but I also think there's so much variance in golf. There's so much luck involved. And I think it just creates this awesome sweat for just a casual fan to be able to enjoy the game. So I wanted to highlight that story today to start off the show because I found it pretty interesting. I found it fascinating how the points list move, how these guys are battling to just play and get on the golf course. The number of hoops that professional golfers have to jump through is quite ridiculous. Let's cover my thoughts really quickly on the world golf rankings as well. So I've talked Ryder Cup, which is 2 weeks old. I'm talking, stories that are, several days old now. No story older or more relevant, I guess, in terms of social media in golf than the official world golf rankings, OWGR. Their mandate that came out yesterday was that the Live Golf series is not going to get world golf ranking points. They did not qualify. There's so many good takes on this on Twitter, and I see positives from takes that are like polar opposite. I understand takes that are polar opposite. I guess my take on this is the Live Golf conundrum is incredibly challenging. It's now geopolitical, or if it wasn't, if it was geopolitical before, but now it's even more geopolitically driven. And I think that creates a ton of challenges. These guys want to play golf, but they're not going to get recognized for the golf that they play. To me, I just don't really understand it. I understand there's criteria. I understand that the Live Golf format doesn't fit into the criteria. I understand that like the team golf part of Live creates some challenges where, if one golfer needs to finish better than another golfer, you could get someone on your team sort of not trying and trying to make sure that you qualify. I understand all of those things. The biggest thing that I don't understand, or I can't really wrap my head around, is you're talking about a regulatory body who is responsible for simply ranking the best golfers in the world. They are then saying, oh, this new tour that formed isn't going to get points because they don't qualify by our standards, which, again, I understand. If it were Cupe and TJ and Poker Pro Eric and the 5 listeners out there listening to me talk about this, creating our own tour, playing golf and saying, hey, we want world golf rankings points for this, I understand that wouldn't qualify. When you get the likes of Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, and so on and so forth. And I don't care. Name the oldest guy on Live. They were ranked as a part of the OWGR. They were ranked. How can a tour take these golfers and then all of a sudden you say, oh, well, they're not part of the best golfers in the world crew anymore? In 365 days, they just fall off the list. And generally, it just doesn't make sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense. I understand that there's challenges, but in my opinion, there needs to be changes made as to how we determine where Dustin Johnson sits on the world golf rankings list, because Dustin Johnson is playing golf in the calendar year, and Brooks Koepka, who finished very, very close this season twice to winning like 2 majors, very, very close to winning 2 out of the 4 majors. How can we say that he's not ranked or is not going to get ranking points when he tees it up? It just doesn't make sense. So let's make it make sense. Let's make logical. In general, they're not going to, I would imagine. But in general, the main topic here is let's make it make sense. It currently doesn't make sense, and that needs changed. So we'll see what happens. I don't expect that we get this Live Golf PGA Tour details anytime soon. We may get it by the end of the calendar year. That the fact of the matter is the deal is going to be off. I think it will be very interesting to determine what happens between this deal. I don't really have any information. I only can read things on X, and who knows what's true and false and the likes. So I don't like to speculate. We'll wait to see what happens there. Shout out Live though. It just doesn't make sense. Have to find a way to rank these guys who definitely are some of the best players in the world. I believe it's DeChambeau, Gooch, Taylor Gooch, shout out Poker Pro Eric helping me out, Taylor Gooch, and Cam Smith to come down to who wins Live, the individual title this year. I think Cam Smith's out in front. DeChambeau, Bryson's been playing harder than anybody in the world, maybe. Him and Taylor Gooch, the only people that can chase down Cam Smith. So we'll see what happens on Live. All right, this is not a Live show. This is a PGA Tour show. This is talking Rainmakers. This is talking who is going to win the Shriners Open. So let's try to determine what that looks like. I actually have a ton of guys in my portfolio that also fit the fall golf swing really well. So I'm excited about my portfolio, excited about some of the lineups I have, and interested to see how things play out. All right. As always, we're on otmnft.com. That was like a 30-minute. How long was it? Yeah, that was a 30-minute rant on a ton of different things in my thoughts in golf. So if you're out there listening to the podcast, if you're out there watching the show on repeat, just fast forward to the 30-minute mark if you only want to talk Shriners Open, excuse me, because the first 30 minutes we don't cover anything on the Shriners Open. Tom Kim, top of the board, plus 1,100 to win. Definitely feels like Tom Kim just getting back into the swing of things. He's in Dallas, so playing in Vegas. Maybe he's over there in Vegas enjoying himself. TPC Summerlin, right outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. Course that will ultimately seed birdies. Shout out Rick Run Good. He's on the grounds being in Vegas over there. I saw some tweets, posts. I can't get X. Can't get Twitter to be replaced in my head by X, and I can't get tweets to be replaced in my head by posts, but saw a post from Rick on X this morning that the course is in mint condition, and a course like this in mint condition is going to seed birdies. So it's going to be a bit of a birdie fest. It's going to come down to a putting clinic. Who makes the most, 10 to 20 footers is probably what this thing's going to come down to. Shout out Summerlin being close to Angel Park, GC. Angel Park is incredible little venue over there in Vegas, right off the strip. Played some in the dark par 3 with Poker Pro Eric. Was an awesome trip, and we'll definitely be visiting Angel Park when we get out to Vegas again next year. So definitely on the list. A couple other big names. Siwoo Kim, love Siwoo Kim. Siwoo Kim Stan account, just not sure this week on Siwoo Kim. Not sure on either of the Kims, quite frankly. Most of the talk is on Cam Davis. Some of the talk is come down the list. A lot of the talk on Eric Cole. A couple other guys. Svensson. My guy Mark Hubbard getting a lot of buzz. And I think that's pretty much most of what I've seen and heard. Bez played pretty good last week. I like Bez way down here, so that should be pretty interesting. It's a course where you're going to have to make birdies. It's a course where you don't really have to drive it that well. It will be a classic PGA Tour kind of course. Approach shots and putting going to matter the most. When you don't have a chance at birdie, likely chipping in, likely giving yourself as many stress-free pars as possible will be crucial. So in general, my plan here in all of fall golf is to do a couple things. One, leverage the portfolio I have and play the best plays. It's been that way from the beginning. I will say that it hasn't really panned out that well for me. It hasn't been a horrible strategy, but just haven't been able to notch any of these massive, top heavy prizes. I really like the payout structure of the fall golf contest. They're not the biggest prize pools, but they're really spread out. They're nice. And about 30% of the field in some of these are getting paid. So I like the formats. I like the way DraftKings Reignmakers says, put these on the schedule, kept us entertained, keeping us sweating. I think it's really, really, really interesting. And I like the fact that, is there that many Tom Kims out there? Ownership's not going to be that crazy, 10, 12, 15%. And you can certainly win with 2, 3, maybe even 4 guys at 10 to 15%. So it is about just chasing down as many people at the top of the board as you possibly can. So my portfolio is looking pretty good this week to be able to do that, at least given the upside, the ceiling that some of these golfers have. I think you need to find that fifth golfer, that fourth and fifth golfer who is, outside of this plus 5,000 range. So outside of Grillo, who I love Grillo, but Luke List, Aaron Rye, Higo, Alex Noren. You guys know my hatred, honestly, for Alex Noren. I can't seem to ever get him right. Bez, let's go even beyond Bez. Who are some golfers that we know Been playing pretty decent or have upside. KH Lee was a killer last week for me specifically. Just had no chance to make the cut. Was in plus figures the entire first 2 days. Callum Tarrant, TJ's big on Callum Tarrant. Trying to think of other names that we like. Scott Stallings played great last week. I mean, plus 10,000 on Scott Stallings. Definitely someone to possibly like. And there's our guy, Dylan Wu, plus 13,000. The issue again is like, I think Dylan Wu last week was -3, missed the cut. Like, if the cut is 3, 4, 5, 6 under, Wu just isn't always built to make all those birdies. He's not going to make many bogeys, is the nice thing. So I think there's some upside on Dylan. CT Pan, we've seen some upside on. Hayden Buckley will be really interesting. Shout out Josh Allen, Yardley. We've been talking about Hayden Buckley for a while. Hayden Buckley hurt, hit like a torn shoulder or a torn muscle, and ended up coming back to play the PGA Tour playoffs. Somehow, just given his performance over the year, he missed like 2+ months. I want to say like 10 weeks he missed, and came back in the playoffs. Actually played pretty decent in the playoffs. So he's back. Seems like he's back at full health. Missed the cut last week, but back at full health. Novak Monday qualifies, as we talked about. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think nobody more interesting than Harry Hall, who's played TPC Summerlin as like good as anybody. So in terms of like some slight history and how his game figures out, Hall is quite an interesting character down here at plus 13,000. But my take is you're going to need to find one of these guys who are going to be underowned, 1% captain kind of guys, 2-3% ownership sort of guys, and get them into your lineups in the rare and in the elite. And if they can run up the board, really gives you a chance to separate. So there's going to be someone who does it, and that someone could be you, and you take those chances. It just depends on how your portfolio is looking. All right. Market pricing. I want to check market pricing here real quick. I find pricing to be quite interesting because you got to go off the 24-hour volume. 6 buys here on Nate Lashley. Pretty good. Let's go. This is sorted by volume automatically. So 6 buys at the most. There's just not that many buyers. So you can't really trust the low ask. You really got to look at the buys and how much people have been buying for, and then try to make sales based on that. I would also take a look at offers. If you're trying to liquidate, you're going to have to use offers. You're not going to be able to use low ask at this point in time. So I would say, in terms of like how you view your collection, you look at my collection, I think it's $1,000 low ask, somewhere around there. You just aren't going to get anywhere near $1,000 in terms of how you liquidate. So I think this is really important to know. You need to look at where golfers are moving, what prices they're moving at, and price things pretty aggressively if you're trying to actually sell in this market. So just an important note there. All right, let's build some lineups. I already built most of my team, so mostly just talking through my thought process here. JT Poston, pretty sneaky, I think. At what is he? 3rd in odds. Sorry, let's take a look. Is he 3rd in odds? 4th in odds. Right behind Cam Davis. Definitely can win this tournament. Definitely. Has the game to do it. Can the putter just get really hot? Poston can get hot with the putter. Can he get really hot with the putter is the question. I'm going to bet on it in my top lineup. Adam Schenk, Emiliano Grillo. Grillo was a huge disappointment last week. I think he shot even par to miss the cut. Really tough one. Needed him to come through. Was my captain last week. I'm sure he's going to bounce back, which is why I'm not captaining him. He will bounce back when he's in the lineup. And then I'm going with the Kims. I know I said I don't love it, but it's just so hard to fade the top of the board in Reignmakers. So my top lineup goes only down to Grillo, and I expect it to be chalky. But I'm, like I said, I'm just going to try to play the best plays, even based on odds. Going to try to play the best set of plays that I can. And then after that top lineup, I usually get a little crazy because the portfolio demands that I get a little crazy. So that's just my take on Reignmakers. I'm really not buying anyone. If I was buying someone, Eric Cole, I think, is my guy. We'll see. Maybe we can get an Eric Cole. Not going to pay anywhere near 50. What's the market say on Eric Cole? Any action 2 elites. I'm interested now. What's the last elite sale? We saw he was a $50 low ask, $10 top offer, which is not terrible. We had 2 sales. Wow, 2 $40 sales. And some more. $44, $30. Yeah. I mean, Eric Cole commanding some value here at the elite level. It's only $10 off his low ask. So why would that be the case? Let's jump over. We can do some speculation why that might be the case. Cole is, where is he ranked? Well, he's got to be on this list here, right? Eric Cole. Somehow, is he inside the top 50? Yeah, so like Eric Cole ranked 43rd on the FedEx Cup list. It goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier in the show. Like, I just don't understand. Eric Cole is ranked inside the top 50. So is he allowed to play or not allowed to play? Clearly, he's allowed to play. So it's just quite difficult to really understand. And Tom Kim's got to be inside this. What's Tom Kim? I mean, Tom Kim is probably Siwoo's 20th. Tom Kim is 19th. So, yeah, it's just very difficult to really understand the FedEx Cup list when these guys can play. But I think this just goes to show you that quite clearly, if you're a big name in golf, Tom Kim clearly is probably one of the most marketable young players in the game, especially to a global audience. They're going to let Tom Kim play if he wants to play. Clearly, that's the case. I don't quite understand why that's the case. So we'll have to do some more digging, I suppose, as to maybe there's only a certain number of events they can play in the fall. I'm not exactly sure I understand that one. Anyways, Eric Cole commanding some value. His low ask. See, this is my point. His low ask is actually $97. His top offer was $10, and most of his sales are around $40. So quite clearly, you need to take a look at like where you can sell, and this low ask can certainly move up pretty quick whenever you get some sales. Only 2 sales, so not many buyers, and only six sales is the top, right? So not a ton of buyers, not a ton of liquidity. Good call. So I think they don't get FedEx Cup fall points. They just get money that would allow them to one, play for money, and 2, just stay sharp. So they probably don't play that many events. They probably are just trying to stay sharp. I suppose that makes sense. I do think it's always, interesting to see how the PGA Tour positions what guys are allowed to play and win. But yeah, that makes sense. All right. Talk my top lineup. Let's go through. I want to talk about a rare lineup here. Go back to lineup builder. I have 3 elite lineups this week and decided to play 3. Second lineup, Svensson, Luke Lists. Shout out Luke List if you can putt. Joey Bramlett. I haven't played Joey Bramlett in I don't even know how long. So he's been off for a while. Huge driver of the golf ball. The rest of his game is iffy. I think this is a crazy upside, but could definitely miss the cut pretty easily. Poston and Shank, like both of those guys, as you can see, playing up my strong rares. And then one more elite, definitely bottom of the barrel elite, still playing on guaranteed cash. Kevin Roy, Grayson Sig, Dylan Fratelli. Dylan Fratelli, if you're going to embrace anybody can win or anybody can play well, Dylan Fratelli would be that. And plus 80,000 to win. $100 net you 80 grand on Dylan Fratelli. Not going to happen this week, but maybe makes the cut. And then I'm just playing 2 random guys here, 2 flyers, guys way down the list. 100,000 on Andrew Landry, 60,000 on Tyson Alexander. So just letting it fly with that last elite lineup. And then so I'm using 2 very good rares and another 2 very good rares in my top 2. I'm not wasting any rares here, but then my next best rare lineup is probably this top guy here, Tom Hoagie. Putnam, Hadwin, Smalley, and Poston. I'm just all over Poston, I suppose. Like Poston a good bit. Probably not the best number to bet at, but like him for fantasy. A couple of the other guys that I like here. I like Bez. Talked about C Bez a good bit. Zane, who's been playing pretty good. Who else? Who else? Bounce back spot for Cage Lee, potentially. Not sure. Definitely not in my top lineups. Just can't trust him. But yeah, that's how I'm playing this week. So Poston is probably my number one position in terms of how I'm placing him in my fantasy lineup. So all in on Poston this week. All right. I think that's going to do it. Going to try to continue to do these shows where I talk lineups, but I also talk just golf in general. Interested to know if you guys like that, don't like that, want to hear that. So appreciate a couple of people tuning in live and appreciate all of the people that are listening to this either in podcast form or over there on YouTube. Still 6 events left now. Where are we at? Yeah, 6 events left. Zozo and Hero World Challenge going to be really small fields. So should be some pretty decent chances to make some cash and scrape out the last of this 23 PGA Tour Reignmakers season. And then interested to see what happens as we go forward into next season, when next season starts, and all of those things. So yeah, shout out you guys all for listening all season long. Let's finish strong. Still 2.5K at the top. So definitely some money to be won in these contests. So appreciate you all. Thank you for tuning in. And talk to you all next week. Best of luck in your lineups. And until then, be well.